你好. Ni hao.
Jason, you sound like a cat. It's 你好.
Ni hao.
Take a seat, Jess.
What you doing?
Just watching a funny video on YouTube. It's hilarious. There's so many great channels. In China, I never could watch them.
It's banned in China, right?
Well, I suppose you can say it's banned. But the government knows that there are anti-China forces out there. So it wants to protect us from that.
By not allowing you to access YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Wikipedia, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so what have you seen on YouTube that you feel you need protection from?
I don't know. Just the China bashing stuff.
What China bashing stuff exactly?
Things like saying we don't respect human rights. We don't respect people from Hong Kong and their pointless democracy demands. Blaming us for all kinds of things, even the virus.
Again, Wendy, when people are talking about these topics, it's almost always about the CCP, not the Chinese people.
It's the same thing.
It's not the same thing. In Australia, sometimes one party holds power, another time the other party. We vote to choose which party is to serve the people. If one party doesn't do a good job, we can vote for the other. In Australia, the politicians are known as public servants. They're meant to work for the people and serve the people. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way, but we can choose to remove the party that's in power. That's something that's not allowed in China. The CCP wants to be the ruling party forever. Regardless of whether the Chinese people are happy with them, they don't care. They just want to stay in power.
Well, I'm happy with how things are going for me.
Well, for you to be a foreign student over here in Australia, it's very expensive. So I assume that one of your family members works for the Communist Party?
Yeah, my dad.
Well, you're one of the few that fares a bit better off because your father worked for the Communist Party. But many other Chinese do not enjoy those freedoms.
That's their bad luck.
I suppose you could say that, but I wouldn't say that wealth and status define a person. Anyway, one of the tactics the CCP always uses is that it makes the Chinese people feel that an attack on the Chinese Communist Party is an attack on the Chinese people. The CCP media always report it this way on their behalf.
Yes, they do.
Well, the impact of that is when the international community criticizes the CCP, the mainland Chinese instinctively defend it because they feel a sense of shame that they're being attacked, right? But I think it shouldn't be like that. Well, Chinese history is over 5,000 years old, right? And how long has the CCP been in China? Barely 100 years? And where did communism come from in the first place? Europe, right? It's not even part of Chinese culture at all. Yet growing up with party culture, the Chinese people have forgotten their own culture. The CCP is only a blip in Chinese history, a very bad blip. Tell me, what do you think of when you think of China's ancient rich culture?
I really don't know. We were told that the old ways are backwards and superstitious, and that science and technology are ways of the future. We were told we must get rid of the four O's to prosper.
What are the four olds?
Old ideas, old culture, old habits, and old customs.
Oh, that's right. I believe that was taught during the Cultural Revolution in China.
What cultural revolution?
Oh, you don't know about it? I guess it wasn't something taught in your textbooks, right? Funny that.
Of course I know about it, more than you. Well, but you can explain anyway. I'll check your knowledge.
In brief, Mao Zedong in 1966 launched the Cultural Revolution, launching a violent attack on Chinese traditions, burning Buddhist and Taoist temples and destroying many ancient Chinese artifacts. There was also widespread murder of landlords, the wealthy class, intellectuals, and those who opposed the CCP. Almost 8 million deaths were the result of it. It was deadly to speak against the CCP even in those days, and it's still the same today. except that we don't really hear about it as much. They keep their crimes well hidden these days. By contrast, in Australia, we're quite openly critical of our government. We would rarely feel offended if someone criticised the government.
You guys have no loyalty.
It's not an issue of loyalty. We believe that the government is there to serve the people. Our taxes pay the salaries of the politicians. If they do a bad job, we won't vote for them. If they do a good job, we'll keep them in. But what's the point of being loyal to a party that does nothing but serve itself? Actually, I read that being able to openly criticise the government is also part of traditional Chinese culture.
I doubt that.
Well, have you heard of Confucius?
Of course I have. Westerners are so patronizing.
Well, I'm sorry, but it seems that there's a whole lot of Chinese history that's not being taught in the Chinese classrooms.
Oh, what now?
Well, as I said, the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, and more recently in 1989, the Tiananmen Square Massacre.
Tiananmen Square Massacre? What massacre in Tiananmen? You guys really are China bashers.
Or maybe we know about the violent history of the CCP and we want to stand up against human rights abuses wherever they might occur in the world.
I'd say mind your own business.
But as you said, your father works for the CCP back home. What if the CCP turned on him? What would you do about it?
I guess it would be difficult. But that would never happen.
Well, if it were to happen, if it wasn't for people outside of your family or people overseas, like myself, you'd have no support. That's how I look at human rights. Whenever we see anything anywhere around the world, it's everyone's responsibility to speak out against it.
That's kind of you, Jason. I think that if something were to happen to you or Pablo, I would try to help.
Thanks, Wendy.
Speaking of kindness, what were you saying about Confucius?
Confucius. Well, that's the story for part 2 of the video. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.